This is the part of the morning where books on tell you how to speak tell you that you're supposed to say that you're delighted to be with your audience, perhaps even thrilled to be with your audience. Those, of course, are American textbooks. The Canadian ones tell you, please just say that you're only pleased. So I am pleased to be here. You know, it reminds me, last week I was in Halifax and had a chance to have a walk on the pier, beautiful fall walk, and I was with a friend of mine from the United Kingdom, not David Cameron, but another friend from the United Kingdom, and we came across two pots of lobsters, and of course one had a top on it and one had no top on it, and I said to my friend, well, the pot with the no top are the Canadian lobsters, the pot with the top are the American lobsters. He said, how on earth do you know that? And I said, well, because the Canadian lobsters, we don't need a top. As soon as one of them tries to climb out, the others pull them down. You know, some people say the difference between our countries is Quebec guns and Medicare. Other people say it's our constitutions, right? The Americans got that glorious promise, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We got peace and good government. But I think actually, if you want to understand our differences, and I'm going to come to this point in a moment, you just need to look at the yogurt container you had for breakfast this morning. The Canadian yogurt has on its top a very important message, a public health message. It says best before, meilleur avant, right? Both languages tells you when you should eat this stuff by. And of course in America it says sell by. They actually don't care about the public health message. They only care to get the hell out of the store, right? I start with those things because I think in many ways the differences between Canadians are more real than apparent, but there's many similarities, but yet there's some important differences. And I feel a bit like that this morning coming to chat with you. There are many differences in our professions. I'm not an expert in yours. I've retained many fundraisers in my career, and I've been on the receiving end of many solicitations for funds, but I'm not an expert. And yet I think some of the things that we do in public strategy, public affairs communications, the toolkit that we have, probably contains some things that, when interpreted against the challenges that you face, might be of some interest to you. And that's what I wanted to talk about this morning. I wanted to talk this morning a little bit about how persuasion works, what persuasion looks like, how it takes place, and how you can influence it. So I thought I'd wake you up on Monday morning by talking about one of the most controversial issues of all, and that would be abortion. So when you think about your own personal opinion of abortion, what do you think about? Do you think about a passionate fight to protect a woman's right to choose, or do you think about a never-ending fight to protect an innocent, unborn child's life? Now, I know quite a bit about public opinion in Canada, and I know enough about Canadians' views on this particular topic to know that there are people in this room that identify with both of those positions. Those opinions are on both ends of that particular opinion spectrum. I also know that there's an awful lot of you who don't think the issue is so black and white, that there's a lot to consider, that it's complicated. And for you sit somewhere in the middle of the persuasion curve. You see, opinion looks something like this. If you just bear with me while I draw this out for you a little bit, if you think of a typical axis, and this would be on this axis number of people, right, growing up as we go, and this would be intensity of opinion along the bottom, and say on a scale, a multipolar scale of 1 to 10, where 1 would disagree with your proposition and 10 would be the ones who most fervently agree with it. And if you think of it that way, opinion usually bell curves something like this. And we typically have split it into 3 groups that look something like this. We would say on an issue that we care about persuading people to join us that these people here, the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, we would call them the immovables. They would be the people that we would really realize that we don't really have much chance at moving over to our side. These people over here, the 8s, and I actually should have drawn this line here, 8s, 9s, and 10s are the people that we would sort of take for granted. We would figure as long as we didn't blot our proverbial copybook, they would stay with us. And these people in here would be the ones that we would launch our fight over. And that's typically those people in the middle we would call our prospects, the ones that would be available to come and join us. So that's basically what opinion would look like. So in this particular case, on the issue of abortion, if we were supporting the proposition to advance the women's right to choose. Those people, the 1s, 2s, and 3s, we wouldn't even talk to. The 8s, 9s, and 10s we would take for granted, and we would fight over the middle. So that line, that arc that I drew a little bit badly, is what we would call a neutral opinion curve or a neutral spark line, because in that particular case, the majority of the population is open on the issue. But that curve isn't always exactly like that and often takes different shapes. So let's look at the spark line on another social question. This time let's look at equal marriage. Way back in 2003, Canadians were strongly opposed and divided on whether or not equal marriage should be legalized. 41% were against, 36% were in favor, and 23% was on the fence. Now, here is something to remember when you look at data like this. We're never looking at 100% to win, right? We don't need 100% to advance a public policy position. But what we do need to have on side are passionate people who are active and willing to take action. Let's just go back to that equal marriage data for a moment. Keeping in mind that we don't need half of the population on our side, the spark line on that shift is actually quite remarkable. I showed you the numbers for 2003. 7 years later, in 2010, opposition to equal marriage had dropped 14 points to 28%. Support had jumped almost the same, 12 points to 53%. In other words, we'd shifted 35% of the Canadian population. Those seemingly small shifts, of course, represent enormous gains. There are countless variables that cause opinion to move or persuasion to take place, but when we boil it down, we find 3 common ingredients: opinion shapers, timing, and an adversary. Of course, none of us live in a vacuum. We're influenced across an endless number of levels, but we're influenced most especially by people that we know and trust. My most efficient way of persuading you is through your network of trusted friends, and it is that network that I need to find in order to activate those opinion shapers. I'm sure all of you know an opinion shaper. You're probably one yourself. Opinion shapers are typically consumers of information. Their social networks are strong, they read a lot, and they tend to be better informed. I mean, after all, you don't just turn to anyone when deciding what restaurant to go to, or where to invest your savings, or what car to buy. And while we've known always that opinion shapers exist, historically we've had an enormously difficult and expensive time finding them. But that has changed, and an amazing thing has happened. With the advent of the internet, the opinion shapers now find us. Now, this isn't a build it and they will come approach. In fact, it still takes a lot of work to make it easy for our supporters to find you. But once they have, our task is to equip them with the tools they need to activate their network on your behalf. And when we do it right, our opinion shapers end up doing the work for us. Using word-of-mouth advocacy, they pull people out of that prospect category and push them into joining them in their own category. A shift in opinion is not just dependent on the person who starts it, however, but it's also important how powerful the proposition is. Consumer marketers tell us that change can only occur when perceived benefit is greater than perceived cost. But with respect on these issues, I think they've got it wrong. Change often occurs when there's a real, imminent threat. The quickest way to get that point across and to convert someone is with emotion. The stakes have to be high, and the stakes are never higher than when an adversary looms on the horizon. In our world, the adversary is another candidate, a dreaded tax, or something that triggers that most generous of reaction, a NIMBY reaction. Your adversary might be different. It might be cancer, homelessness, a cause, social justice cause, but regardless, you have to find something to fight against. You need something for your supporters to rally around. So that's what you need to change opinion. Opinion shapers, timing, and an enemy. And so that's caused us to rethink how we've done our campaigns, how we deploy our resources, and how we actually drive results for our clients. And now we look at it like this. So we back to that graph I drew for you just a minute ago. And you can see why being able to read my writing is important for my assistant. We draw that graph again, right? We draw it like this. And here's what we did. So in the old days, we would be spending all of our time, as I said, trying to find these people, figure out where they existed, blast them with advertising. It cost a fortune. We didn't know even in what geographic markets to target or whatever, hoping that these people would somehow find some interest in our proposition and come and join us over here in what we call the opinion shapers, our core audience, the most motivated people, the ones that are most valuable to us. And we've done this forever, right? And we've done it forever in terms of how we've tried to move opinion on a whole variety of issues. Now what we do is we do the opposite. We focus here, and we focus all of our effort and all of our time against motivating these people and making these people as excited and animated and involved with us as possible. And then we ask them to go backwards into this group, get these people, and bring them over to us. And that fundamental change and that willingness to actually forego dealing with the people dealing with the group where is the highest number of prospects, actually willing to look at a lower number of absolute prospects, but recognizing that these people are much more important to us. And they're important to us, as I said before, because they actually find us, right? Even though we may advertise towards them or try and animate them ourselves, the bulk of these people, they're motivated to actually put down their Pringles, put down their Diet Pepsi, get off the lazy boy. Well, maybe not even get off the lazy boy, maybe just pick the laptop onto their lap, right? And come and find us. And that's why with a proper online environment and a proper ask, we can actually get them to do something, because it turns out these people are also busybodies. And they actually like to be the smartest person at the table or the smartest one in the lunchroom. They actually like to have the leading opinion. And they actually get quite a lot of psychological value out of actually doing that kind of work for us. So we've moved from that old campaign, which we called a persuasion campaign, to what we now call an activation campaign, because we can actually get these people to do things for us. They'll protest for us, they'll reach out to their friends for us, they'll tell our stories, and they'll become our ambassadors. And if you wonder if it works, we recently did a campaign where the impact to the consumer was $6 a month, and we triggered 130,000 protest actions just in a few weeks. So we're learning an awful lot about these people and their power to come and do it and to help us out. And it's because because these are the most vocal people, the most passionate people, the most likely to take action, that they'll actually come and do something. They'll actually come and do something for you. I don't know if you've had a chance to see a website called threadless.com. You might want to check it out. But threadless.com sells t-shirts. And visitors to the threadless.com site can submit their own t-shirt designs, and then anybody can vote on them. And the ones that are the most popular get made, and they get offered for sale. Threadless.com uses a 5-point rating scale, 1 to 5, and what they figured out is if they get a 2.6 or higher, they'll make the t-shirt and it will sell. Makes sense, right? Well, here's what's really fascinating. The folks at Threadless have discovered that ideas with below average scores can sell as well. And the key is intensity. The key is how many zeros and how many fives. Designs that inspire passion often get printed because they sell. People might like a design at 2 or 2.5 or 3, but at 5, they will actually buy it. And because those opinion shapers take action, not only do they buy t-shirts, but Threadless has found out they tell their friends. And so there's the lesson for all of us. It's time for all of us to activate these people, to focus our effort on them. It's a bit counterintuitive. I mean, why would we spend money on people that are already going to, in my world, vote for us, or in yours, support your cause? They've already committed to donating to you. Shouldn't we be talking to prospects and chipping away at this untapped pool of potential donors? And well, the answer is no, not with social media. Because social media has altered the way we shift opinion. We're now able to organize these people into formidable armies and to use these armies to influence those prospects. You see, it used to be in a country like Canada especially that geography made this impossible. You know, on some kind of obscure cause, you might have 400 opinion shapers or supporters in Toronto, 1 in Goose Bay, 4 in Flin Flon, 5 in St. Mary's, and 6 in St. John's. They're spread across thousands of Canadian kilometers. It became impossible to mobilize them because it was impossible to identify them. And now, of course, the internet has made us agnostic as to geography. And when we're agnostic as to geography, our disparate coalition suddenly becomes a large unit. It becomes one that, when mobilized effectively, will apply enough pressure on prospects that we can actually shift opinion. Activation campaigns turn out to be remarkably efficient because when you target your movers, your call to action is much more likely to be met with a positive response. I invite you to compare that for a moment to the old model of targeting that middle of the bell curve. It's a bloody shot in the dark, a cold call that has very little chance of success. By ignoring prospects and activating your opinion shapers, you can leverage and drive that word of mouth advocacy, and I think your acquisition cost of donors way down, because those opinion shapers will persuade their friends. I mean, I just take myself, for example. I checked before I came here today. Last year, I gave 62 times to people whose request I got from a friend for a walkathon or some damn thing, at an average donation of $250 each. All those same direct mail things that came to my house went, frankly, into the waste bin without even being opened. So those opinion shapers will persuade their friends. They're going to activate their family members. They'll donate money, they'll attend your events, and they'll invigorate your fundraising efforts. I think it's pretty important for your sector, because no matter how small the niche of your organization serves, or you have a core base of supporters, and you've got an opportunity to take those supporters and make them more than supporters for you, make them opinion shapers. And those opinion shapers are going to pull prospects right into your camp. So I think it's time to ask, are we supporting those people enough? Are we giving them the tools they need to get active? Are we training them? Are you giving them an online community to self-organize? Are you making the online experience for them robust enough to actually connect with you? Are you actively managing the community and letting them manage it as well? And while it's tempting and natural to want to focus on that big, juicy pool in the middle, I'm not so sure that should be job one. I mean, they're less responsive and they cost a lot of time and resources. Obviously, never disrespect them. I'm not sure they should be your focus. Those opinion shapers actually want to be engaged. That's part of the big discovery. It's psychologically advantageous to them. They want to help your cause. They want you to succeed. Your challenge is to make them your champions. And I can promise you, if you do, they will do more for you than you ever imagined possible. Thank you for your attention. First thing Monday morning. And I just want to point out one thing. They put this big ass clock on the thing here. In middle age, it's got big middle age size, so anybody can see it, and it still tells me I got 20 minutes to go. So if I'm over, I'm sorry.
Jaime, thanks so much for what is a provocative start to the morning. I loved the phrase "activate the edge," and I think really sending the message to us that let's not try and persuade the masses, but go after your best supporters and get them to tell their friends. So thank you so much.